Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kickout Club Wrestling Podcast. My name is Tyler, and I'm going in alone today. There's no really negative reason as to why it's happening. Emil and Yusuf and myself, we just couldn't really get our schedules to line up. Yusuf, being a musician like me, had rehearsals all week long and over this weekend, so it really hindered him from being able to commit to a time to record this week. And Emil and I went back and forth throughout today to try to find a time that lined up, but we just couldn't get the job done. And that's totally fine. I'm just going to do a solo episode. We're going to have a little chat about this week's Monday Night Raw from Glasgow, Scotland. And the state of the union a little bit going into to WrestleMania a little bit. See where we're at. And it's going to be a good old time. So buckle up. It's going to be a good episode. I really appreciate y'all being here. If you enjoy what we do, you can support us by following us on YouTube. You can like the video, share, subscribe, leave a comment about your favorite parts, favorite takes, anything there. If you listen to our podcast, you can find us on all podcast streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. If you leave us a rating, 5-star rating would be great, and a review talking about how awesome we are, how you love the podcast, and all that good stuff. Even if it's a little bit of a negative comment too, let us know if you have anything that you're missing from this pod that you'd like to see more of. The more ratings and reviews and engagement we get on those podcast streaming platforms, the better we will perform, and the easier it will be to grow and foster a wonderful community. It's going to create a better experience for everyone involved. You can also follow us on TikTok if you like that short form content. We clip our TikTok, our videos, our podcasts, all that stuff, and make some short form content. So you can follow us there as well. We've seen some growth on all three avenues, to be honest: podcast, YouTube, and TikTok. So get in while it's early. Be an early adapter of the Kickout Club Wrestling Podcast. Join the Kickout Club, where we never stay down. We appreciate you guys listening. And let's get into Raw this week. So very similar to last week, I'm not going to lie. And it's going to be a theme throughout this as we go through this episode of Raw. It's going to be very similar to the week prior. So this week opened up the exact same way. We had the long silence after the music hit, the theme song for the show hit, and the crowd is waiting for who's coming out. And of course, it is John Cena. So John Cena comes out, and he's still mean mugging. He's still staring daggers into fans. So he goes out to the ring. And he basically talks about how he's turned the spotlight on the fans, and he can pick apart anyone and rip them to shreds. No one is safe. And he references the kid from last week that he did that to, where he called out who he called out and said that the fans were horrible for watching and rewatching that moment, and also memeing that poor defenseless kid getting destroyed. I thought that was really cool that he was able to bring that into his heel character and really sell the story he's trying to tell with us. And also just said that his face run for all those 25 years was a social experiment to see how we could respond to him, and to see how, we would love him, and see how we would respond to the various things that he would do. He'd say, when I was loyal, you were loved. When I was edgy, you cheered. And as he was going on through these rhythmic kind of phrases, the fans would throw in a what chant in there. And he goes, when I speak in rhythmic tones, you say what? What? The fans responding. Of course, bringing the crowd into it to have this kind of back and forth, this kind of dialogue. It's been a really good, really great element of Cena's heel promos recently. I really liked it. He keeps going, saying some of the best lines in this promo, in my opinion. I am going to ruin wrestling. I'm going to ruin wrestling for every fan, for every wrestler, for everyone. I'm going to win the 17th world title and make you forget Ric Flair, which also kind of had the crowd cheering. So, because obviously Ric Flair is not the most loved guy in the wrestling community right now. So that was kind of counterintuitive. But anyway, this line at the end, he said, revenge is best served cold, and I pay you back by ripping your heart out and forcing you to watch as I just walk away with your memories, with your traditions and your dreams. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. And that's when Cody Rhodes comes out. Cody comes out wearing a black suit, which, for those of you that care about what color suit Cody is wearing for the purposes of a potential heel turn, he was wearing a black suit this week. And actually, I don't think it was like black. I think it was like a very dark green suit, but close enough. So Cody comes out and says, you want to take this away from them, meaning the title. Don't you think you need to take it away from me first? And that was a good line by Cody. I thought it was very well done. Compared to last week when he was like, it's not kid, it's WWE champion. That just made me cringe. He then says, you should know how hard I fought just to hold this belt one time. And then Cody eventually says, you want to make this, you want to take this, right? And he lays down the belt. Take it right now, John. Let's go. Let's do it right now. And Cena goes to, like, he's like dusting his knuckles off or whatever. And he goes to get out of the ring, and or he goes to square up to Cody, and then he goes and gets out of the ring. As he walks away, Cody says, look at me, John, and he's still cutting the promo to John Cena up at the ramp, and says, your psychotic need to take this championship does not outweigh our right to keep it. And I loved that line. I feel like that's an underrated line in this promo. I feel like that is a very important line to keep hearkening back to, is that as Cena his ego is inflating and growing, and his what's the word? I don't know. His ego is flowing, and his head is growing larger and larger, and he really wants to take this title. Vanity. His vanity is what I meant to say. Cody said the word vanity in the promo as well. Had me thinking about that. But, I feel like Cena's inflating ego of wanting to take the belt and do whatever means necessary, whether it means bringing the fans along with him or not, doesn't outweigh the fans' right and Cody's right to keep the belt where it belongs on Cody Rhodes. The champ is no longer there. He says he basically says the champ is here. He says the champ is standing here in this ring, which I wish he would have just said the champ is here, but I digress. He says, I see you walking away empty-handed. John Cena, that is how you walk away from WrestleMania, and that is how you walk away from WWE. So some really solid one-liners between Cena and Cody, but overall to me it just felt very much the same as last week's promo between the two. It's interesting, though, because I feel like while Cena repeated a lot of the same things and it didn't feel like a whole lot was progressed, Cody, I feel like, added a lot more this week. Like last week, he was just like, I don't want to face this John Cena. Find the real John Cena and bring him to WrestleMania because I want to face him instead. And then he just kind of left and called this Cena a little bitch. Whereas this week, Cody is more so fighting for wrestling in general, for the company in general. Giving Cody more of a motivation was probably the right move, and this was probably the direction they were going to anyway. But I feel like establishing Cody's motivation and why he should beat John Cena probably should have been brought in sooner than that. And I feel like part of the problem, again, is that they had him cut 2 promos to a camera. Cena wasn't there. I won't say he wasn't there to respond, because Cena still hasn't responded to anything Cody has said. But having Cena there and having Cena explain himself so Cody can respond to how Cena's explanations and Cena's motivations would have really helped that, I think. But, it is what it is. We now have Cena in cutting a promo and then Cody cutting a promo, and Cody responds and then Cena just walks away. That's the second week in a row where it's happened. It's hard for me to say which one is stronger, because I feel like if I could pick, I could pick and choose from both as to what was stronger than the other. I liked the overall delivery of Cena's heel promo last week, but I liked the lines of, I'm going to ruin wrestling. I'm going to ruin wrestling for everyone because you showed me what you love and I'm here to ruin it, But I also really strongly prefer Cody's role in this promo this week as opposed to last week. Cody being the guy now that is going to save the company and save the rest of the fans and save all of us from this egotistical, egomaniacal John Cena that has seemed to have been born from The Rock. Maybe we still don't really know, because The Rock hasn't really been around to explain, how he and Cena linked up. But that's where we have the Cody and John Cena feud. It feels weird that we're just doing the same exact thing again. They even advertised it as like Cody Rhodes and John Cena under the same roof, which I'm pretty certain that's exactly what they said. That's what they billed it as the week prior. So I don't really know how I feel about that. I feel like we could have been more creative with, how we're booking this story, if that makes sense. I feel like we could have gone a little bit more creative with it, but it is what it is. That's what we got. And I enjoyed it for what it was. I just wish it was a little bit more unique compared to the week prior. The next thing I want to talk about is this story with Gunther versus Jey Uso. And this week, Jey Uso was set to have a mystery partner to face A-Town Down Under. So Jey Uso with a mystery partner versus A-Town Down Under. And since we were in Glasgow, Scotland, it felt like Twitter immediately was like, it's Joe Hendry. It's got to be Joe Hendry. Say his name and he appears. It's Joe Hendry. I hate to crush your dreams, but like, I don't understand how anyone thought it was going to be Joe Hendry. Gunther's been literally talking about Jimmy Uso by name for the last week, at least week, maybe 2 weeks, talking about Jay's brother, multiple times referring to Jimmy. So like, I don't understand how anyone thought it was going to be anyone other than Jay Uso or Jimmy Uso, excuse me, to team with Jay. I don't understand that. So Jay comes out and Jimmy runs up behind him and he's like, "Hey, oh, it's me!" Like during the entrance, he doesn't get a separate entrance. He just runs out behind Jay. The two of them, they're both dressed as their individual attires. Like they're both dressed as themselves, which I thought was really, really cool. They were able to, maintain their own sense of identity since they both have gone off on their own paths. And now that they came back together, they both feel like massive stars. It really does feel like this gave the team of the Usos a new life, giving both Jimmy and Jay their own distinct paths, personalities, room to grow on their own and develop their own characters. Whether you love or hate Jay Uso, Jimmy Uso in particular has gotten leaps and bounds better. And maybe it's not like he's gotten better, but it's more so that he's been able to showcase the potential of what Jimmy can do on his own. And Jay, I mean, you may hate Jay. I don't hate Jay, but I feel like Jay has had a lot of room to grow and has really grown into his own. Like this Jay Uso was not around during the Bloodline days. It just wasn't. Like you can't deny that this Jay Uso is the same Jay Uso that was in the Bloodline or in the Usos tag team that was pre-Bloodline or anything like that. So I thought that was great. Their in-ring chemistry was absolutely top-notch. They had not missed a beat. They have not lost a beat in how they wrestle together as a tag team. It got me interested about what the potential is for them as a tag team in the future. This Raw tag division is kind of struggling right now. I think it'd be kind of nice to see a Jimmy and Jay Uso renaissance, an Usos reunion tour. I particularly really want to see face Usos versus heel New Day, because we never got that. We always got heel Usos and face New Day. We never got the opposite. So I'm super excited to see where that goes, especially with New Day cutting a promo saying they want to go after the War Raiders and their World Tag Team titles. So we'll see where that goes. But anyway, back to Jimmy and Jay. They win their match against A-Town Down Under. They hit the 1D. Jay hits a spear that revived it revived my hopes after last week's spear looked really, really bad. A way to fix that, right that wrong. And Gunther goes to attack Jay, catches him in the sleeper and has him clutched in the sleeper. And Jimmy actually uses a chair. He goes outside and grabs a chair to try and scare off Gunther with the chair. So Gunther runs out of the ring after that at that point. And I said Jay grabbed the chair. Jimmy grabbed the chair. Jimmy runs Gunther off from Jay. And that's how that segment ends, with the Usos standing tall and Gunther not running away, but, he's kind of backing off at that point, knowing that Jimmy had the chair. Then they cut to backstage, and Jimmy's talking to Jay Uso saying, Jay, you can't beat Gunther. You can't. And Jay's like, I know I can't beat Gunther. And Jimmy's like, no, that's not what I mean. Like, this Jay Uso, whoever this is not you. This isn't the right guy. The right-hand man, main event Jay Uso. The Jay Uso that I know from the Bloodline days, he would be able to beat Gunther. He would be able to win the world title. At this point, Gunther walks by the two of them talking, and Jimmy gets up and he's like, I'll be right back. And he calls out Gunther, and he walks up to him and says, you and me next week on Raw. And Gunther says something along the lines of, ragging on Jay again, and Jimmy's like, ha ha ha, bam. He slaps Gunther so fucking hard. He slaps him clear across the face, and he walks away. And Gunther lets him walk away. So it's set up to be Jimmy versus Gunther next week on Raw. And I have some thoughts, man. With everything going on Twitter, hating Jay Uso and not liking this feud between Jay and Gunther, I have to say, Jimmy is saving this story for me. Because even me as a Jay Uso fan, overall, like, I don't have a negative opinion of the story because of Jay Uso. I have a negative opinion of the story because how piss poor the booking has been for it. They tried to capitalize on this week on Jay, botching a little bit. You know how he botched the dive over the top rope to A-Town Down Under in the last week, I believe. And this week they had him literally try to go for a spear on someone on Gunther, and he tripped and fell. Like, that was ridiculous. That was pathetic. That was awful writing. I understand wanting to, play off of. I understand taking certain concerns from fans and playing off of them, but that was not the concern to play off of, man. You don't want fans to remember that happened. You don't want fans to be, you don't want to reiterate the fans' concerns. You don't want to validate the fans' concerns. You want to have Jay look good, and you want to make the fans forget those concerns that they had, that he messed up the dive over the top rope, that Jay only has a few moves. Like, harping on that is only making it worse. It's only validating the same concerns. It's not really saving anything. It's not really like vindicating Jey Uso of any of these criticisms from fans. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough build. Bringing Jimmy Uso in, even though it is pretty far into the story, and better late than never. It's better late than never. Jimmy has fantastic character work. Low key, better character work than Jay's had in this story, maybe. But it's crazy to see this. It's crazy to see this. I'm glad Jimmy is added into the story. I'm a little bummed only because he's now seemingly not involved in the United States Championship picture, which really has me bummed, because I thought Jimmy Uso was going to be the one to beat Shinsuke Nakamura at WrestleMania for the US title, but they had LA Knight do it first. And that's fine. LA Knight's a great champion. That's totally cool. But yeah, so next week we're getting Jimmy versus Gunther. Jimmy breathing a whole new life into the story, that's adding layers into the story, having Jimmy in the story with Jay. And I'm hoping from here Jimmy helps to steer the ship in the right direction and sets up his brother to prove all the fans wrong, all the deniers wrong, defeat Gunther, win the world title, and it will be a great way to kick off WrestleMania, I think. I think it's going to be an opener, but we'll see what happens. The Women's World Championship feud is so interesting. So many things that I feel like they're doing wrong with this. It's not necessarily bad. It's just like, it just doesn't feel right to me. And I wouldn't even say it's the writers that are doing it, that are getting this wrong. I would say it's the fans getting this wrong. And let me explain a little bit. So after everything that happened last week with Rhea signing her name on this contract saying, "Oh, I'm in the match now," and then, her and Io and Bianca fighting all over the arena last week. Adam Pearce has another contract signing this week between Io and Bianca. He has them quickly sign. He's like, "All right, cool. We're all good." Rhea comes out, right? Before she comes out, Adam Pearce says he was going to give Rhea a rematch for the title before WrestleMania, but she was going rogue, wanting to be added to the Mania match. That wasn't his plan. He wanted to put her in a rematch before WrestleMania. She was disrespectful, doing what she did to sign her name on the contract and take matters in her own hands, being selfish and wanting to do things on her own time. It doesn't work like that. He's the general manager. He was putting his foot down in that regard. So Rhea interrupts and says that she wants her rematch now, and Adam Pearce is like, "Oh, now you want your rematch?" Which, like, yeah, I don't fucking blame him. I don't blame him for acting this way. So Rhea interrupts and demands her rematch, and Bianca says that, Rhea's going to have to wait, and they shove Io out of the way. This is where I'm like, what is going on, right? Rhea Ripley has been the one that has been annoying. She's been rebellious. She's been just like ridiculously irrational about this storyline. She's charging into places she doesn't belong. She's forcing her way into these situations that she clearly doesn't belong in, and it's ridiculous, man. The way that she signed the contract, I didn't like it when Cena did it. I don't like it. A contract is a legal document. It is final. It is binding. If your name is not in the contract, if you are not one of the parties involved in this contract and you sign your name on it, it means nothing. It is just scribbles on the page. It means absolutely nothing. That's how it works in the business world, in the real world. And so for her to do that and whine and say, "I want my rematch. Give me my rematch." And literally she was like, "Give me my rematch." Adam Pearce is like, "No." And she's like, "Give me my rematch." "No." "Give me my rematch." "No." She sounds like a child. And what I don't understand is that through all of this, the fans are cheering Rhea Ripley. The fans are cheering Rhea, and I love Rhea too. I do love Rhea Ripley. She's she's the best, one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. Probably the best character in women's wrestling, one of them. Um, Probably the biggest star in the women's wrestling world too. But how is Rhea not the heel here? She's defying authority. She's constantly attacking Io and Bianca, both also baby faces. It's crazy. And meanwhile, Bianca, we don't know if she has any responsibility for the Jade Cargill situation. As far as we know now, it's just between Naomi and Jade. And she won the Elimination Chamber fair and square. So that set up Io versus Bianca. Why is Rhea not the heel? Why is Bianca the heel? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Most importantly, why is Io Sky being absolutely disrespected? Every single time. It is Rhea and Bianca face to face, and they're bickering and they're swinging at each other, they're swatting at each other, and then Io tries to get involved, and every time it's just, nah, we don't want to deal with you, and they shove her face away. It'd be one thing to shove her like chest or whatever, or shove her shoulder or whatever. They're shoving her face away. That to me shows ultimate disrespect. And maybe that's the way that they're doing this purposely, so where Io, it looks like they're underestimating Io, so Io can, steal the win in the triple threat match at WrestleMania. Maybe that's the case, but it really doesn't make Io look like a strong champion going into WrestleMania. And it really sucks. It really sucks, man. So, Io versus Bianca is announced for next week's Raw with Bianca Belair as the guest referee. And the winner will face Bianca at WrestleMania for the title. Bianca was totally caught off guard by being named the special guest referee. And she said she has no referee experience, which tells me that some shit's going to go wrong. Some shit is going to go awry. Maybe it's a no contest. Maybe it's a double pin. Maybe it's a DQ. Something's going to happen where Bianca screws somebody maybe, or Bianca just fights with everybody and the match is thrown out. And Adam Pearce is going to come out and say, this is too much. I can't take it anymore. It's you at WrestleMania. It's Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania for the Women's World title. Is it going to be a fantastic match? Absolutely. Could it close night one? Absolutely. But the story isn't doing it for me. The story makes Io look like a joke. Even though Io is fighting back against these two, it still makes Io look pretty bad. And it makes me feel like it makes me kind of confused as to why the fans are cheering for Rhea and not cheering for Bianca. But it is what it is, I guess. We're going to see how this plays out next week. I'm assuming what I said is going to happen. It's going to be something where things go awry and Adam Pearce gives up and he just announces the triple threat for WrestleMania. And that'll be cool. It'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. It'll be okay. We'll see where it goes. And in the main event of Raw, we have the Intercontinental Championship picture, which takes shape for WrestleMania. So we have Braun Breaker defeating Penta by DQ to retain the Intercontinental Championship when Dominic Mysterio comes into the ring and attacks Braun Breaker. Now let's set the stage a little bit. So earlier in the night, Dominic Mysterio is talking to Finn Balor backstage and the rest of Judgment Day, and they talk about bringing this concept of bringing in a new member and how maybe he should talk to Penta. And Finn is still all about no new members in Judgment Day. No new members. And Dom is like, well, maybe we can use him to our advantage. Maybe if he beats Braun tonight, we can use him to our advantage. So that's where we leave that backstage. And then the main event happens where Braun Breaker defeats Penta by DQ to retain the title. Dom comes out and attacks Braun. The Judgment Day are all over this match. They're out at ringside. They're watching. And then eventually they do interfere. Eventually we get to the end of the match. And, Dom slides into the ring and attacks Braun Breaker. And then, he's swinging at Braun. And Carlito gets in there. Eventually, Finn Balor gets in with a chair. And it's Finn and Dom standing face to face. And Finn goes to almost look like he's about to start swinging it at Dom. But he changes his mind and hands it to him instead. So they're right there, another tease that there's tension in the Judgment Day between Finn and Dom. And so Dom takes the chair and he's hitting Braun with it a few times, and then Penta stands up. And then Dom's like, hey, Penta, take this. Cero miedo in the Judgment Day. Cero miedo in the Judgment Day. Penta throws the chair back at Dom. He takes the chair. He throws it back at Dom and drop kicks it in his face. And then Finn gets pissed off and he attacks Penta. And Raw ends with the Judgment Day all standing tall. And I don't like this. I don't like the Judgment Day stuff that's happening right now. I don't hate what's happening with the Intercontinental Championship picture totally. I like the idea of Finn and Dom having this power struggle. It's just really hard for me because Judgment Day is just so weird right now. Judgment Day doesn't feel like... They feel like a shell of what they used to be. And I know that it feels like they're trying to have Dom be the one to kind of lead the charge on it for the future, but it just doesn't feel great to me right now. It's cool that Dom's going to probably in the end get over on Finn and look good and move on from there. But it really just feels like this should have ended a while ago. You know, since Damian and Rhea were in the Judgment Day, I feel like that was their time. That was their moment to, once they left, that was the moment to disband. You know, when they announced the new lineup of Judgment Day, I was happy about it and I was excited about it, but they really just haven't delivered on it. And I think it's safe to say that now. Attempting to recruit Penta to the Judgment Day is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. That was a dumb story. It was a dumb idea. I don't know how Dom even thought that was a realistic possibility. Braun Breaker being involved in this is cool. You know, I mean, he's a great Intercontinental Champion. I mean, I wish they would do more with him. I wish they would cut more promos with him, make him more of a prominent figure. But recently, I feels like he's just kind of a background character to these stories that are happening around him, like the Judgment Day Dom and Finn story, like Penta's rise. You know, last week when they had Penta stand face to face with, or was it last week or the week before when Penta stood face to face with Braun? I think it was last week. That was cool. That was great. But now looping him in with the Judgment Day stuff is a little weird for me. But I hope at the end of this, the rumor is that it's going to be a fatal four-way match for WrestleMania. Braun, Penta, Finn, and Dom. I hope this ends with Braun retaining and a Judgment Day breakup, but we'll see what happens. And I hope Penta comes out not eating the pin and looking strong at the end of the day, but we'll see where that all goes. Now, at this point, you might notice, you know, we begin with Cena and Cody. We end with the Intercontinental Championship involving Judgment Day and Penta and Braun. Is this deja vu? Are you listening to last week's episode? And the answer is no. The answer is no, you're not. It feels to me like these last 2 weeks on Raw have been booked to be almost by AI, but they were definitely booked lazily. They were booked to have the same stories on them. I didn't talk about all of the stories from Raw in efforts of time. I wanted to keep it relatively short today, and I'm looking at how long we're rolling, and I'm honestly surprised it hasn't even been 30 minutes yet. But we'll see. We'll see how long this goes. But basically, I saw a tweet today by Zashi, if you're familiar with the internet wrestling community on Twitter. Zashi120 tweeted, "Is it safe to say that the European tour has been disappointing in terms of show quality so far?" I'm inclined to say yes. I am very inclined to say yes. I have not been impressed. And especially after watching this Raw, where it felt like a carbon copy of the last week's Raw. The same stories, almost in the same order, with little to no development. Even more so last week, though, I will say. Because with last week, you had Seth and Cody come out and just give like one-liner promos, basically, that really meant nothing. They amounted to nothing. Actually, CM Punk also kind of did the same thing. He was in the Rollins spot where he's cutting his promo about Rollins and Roman Reigns in the triple threat, saying that he's gonna, that he would show up in the future and that they were gonna do a contract signing on Friday. So here's how Raw has been booked the last couple weeks. Open with Cena coming out, cutting a promo on the fans, usually about 15-20 minutes, and then Cody interrupts and cuts maybe 10 minutes maximum in response. Cena doesn't respond, and he walks away, right? Then we get to the world title feud. We get to Jay and Gunther. Last week we had the A-Town Down Under thing where Jay squashed Austin Theory, And then, he botches the dive over the top rope, and Gunther gets Jay in the clutch. All right, cool. Then we got Women's Intercontinental Championship stuff with Dakota Kai, Lyra Valkyria. This week we had some stuff with, or there was Ivy Nile is in the mix as well. This week we got some stuff with Lyra and Bailey, with Liv and Raquel as well. Then we got the storyline with American Made and El Grande Americano, which I gotta say, that video package that they did for El Grande Americano was fucking mwah, chef's kiss. It was so good. Especially listen, I don't want to get into politics on this podcast too much, but I'm not the biggest fan of renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I think it's stupid. It makes no sense. But including that in the storyline for El Grande Americano, I thought was a very nice touch. Builds heat, and it adds a little bit of realism to it. Adds a little bit of in touchness to it. And by the way, El Grande Americano is most certainly not Chad Gable. So you can keep that out of your mouths right now. But also, moving on from that, we have from here, we had the Cody Cena, we had the Women's Intercontinental, we had the World Heavyweight title story. Then we get the promo that's sandwiched right in the middle of the show that means nothing. Last week it was Seth coming out basically saying, I'm going to be on SmackDown. Bye. Punk kind of did the same thing this week. He did add a little bit more substance to the promo, but that's really all it was that, hey, I'm here to fulfill my time to make sure that you all get your money's worth, but I'll see you on Friday for when the real substance comes, when we do the contract signing with Roman and Seth. Then we have the Io Bianca Rhea Women's World Heavyweight title stuff. Last week there was a contract signing. This week there was also supposed to be a contract signing. And then they booked the rematch with Rhea again, with Rhea and Io next week with Bianca as the guest ref. And then in the main event, we had the Intercontinental Championship stuff with Braun Breaker and Penta and Judgment Day. And it seems to be like almost literally in the same order. 2 weeks in a row. And both Raws also ended at like the 2.5 hour mark, which honestly, I don't really care about when Raw ends per se, but some people do. I will say there are considerably less commercials now than there were in the past before Netflix. So to me, I feel like we are getting a lot more substance out of it than we were in the past. But that's just me. I could be wrong, but it just feels that way. So I don't really know how to feel about this. It just, and even the SmackDowns have just been kind of like mid. Like nothing's moving with a sense of urgency. Nothing's moving like we're on the road to WrestleMania. Nothing feels big. Nothing really feels high stakes. As big as Cena turning heel and cutting promos on the fans in a heel fashion are, it still doesn't feel like we're on the way to WrestleMania. And we're like 4 weeks away. I'm not really sure where we're going with it, but I'm just hoping that in the end of the day, it all works out for the best. But that's all we can ask for as wrestling fans, isn't it? It's all we can ask for. Whew. I think that's actually about all that we need to talk about today, y'all. I don't really have much to talk about because usually we talk about SmackDown as well, the previous week's SmackDown, but we had a late podcast, so if you if you haven't already, please tune into last week's episode as well. It came out late on Friday, so we got to talk about SmackDown right after it happened, and it was still on Friday night, which is pretty nice. So we just talked about Raw today, and that's why we kind of have it much shorter, and I don't have anybody to argue with, so we'll keep it a little short this week. But y'all, I really, really appreciate you tuning in this week. If you like what you heard, like I said at the beginning, feel free to support us however you feel best. And that would be for us, if you're listening on podcast streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you leave a 5-star rating and a review, that would be really, really awesome. We would really appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends as well. Because that's how we're really going to grow this community, is if we all work together and do our part to, share it around. Share it around. Get some people involved that you think would really like the stuff that we do. And also follow us on TikTok as well for all that short form content as well. We're really growing over on TikTok. And we're really growing on YouTube too. So I'm trying to post one a day. We're trying. I had a couple off days, but I'm trying to post more often. So I hope you all are enjoying it. I'm enjoying making it. And y'all, I'm going to leave it here. So really appreciate you tuning in. And as always, we'll see you next week. Never stay down. We'll see y'all later.